Greetings! Editor Me here. Just a heads up, there's a giveaway at the end of the video. If you're interested, stick around to the end. The upcoming Abiotic Factor DLC will be bringing a lot of new content to the game, most of which we currently don't know the specifics on. So I thought now would be a great time to list 10 things I hope to see added to the game in Abiotic Factor's Entropic Break. To get started, I think a really simple one would be to add a third Trinket slot. I don't know about you guys, but I always find myself using the gravity cube and a crystalline vial. You can argue that the vial becomes less important late game once you have access to charging pads, but it's still a great quality of life item for personal teleporters when you inevitably forget to charge them, which happens to be way more than I'd like to admit. Great example of me not charging my stupid personal teleporter, or more like I'm stupid for not charging it. There are, however, a few honourable mentions I sometimes swap in, like the core companion trinket since the pet rework, or the fog lantern when using maestro armor. Overall, I think a third trinket slot would give us much more flexibility with our build without having to nerf or buff individual trinkets. Having more options is never a bad thing. We already know from the trailer that we're getting some kind of shelled pest, so it's great that we're getting more companions, but I think we could take this one step further. Currently, we can mutate specific pests into different subspecies, which is a great addition, but I'd love to see a system where you could also actually evolve them into further stages. Take the pest line for example. What if you could eventually evolve one into an Exor? With tameable Exors only being obtainable through evolution rather than finding them in the wild. Obviously, there could be some lore implications that prevent this, but another option could be branching evolution lines that could go through multiple stages. So instead of simply mutating a pest into another pest variant, you can eventually choose completely different evolutionary paths. Leading on from companions, I think Robotics would be a perfect addition to the game. It makes thematic sense, and it could allow us to build smaller versions of the existing security bots as customizable pets. Maybe you could choose their weapons and secondary abilities from the existing robots, alongside some new options. Robotics could also introduce pet trinkets, allowing us to customize our companions with different effects, abilities, or buffs. But you could even take it one step further and tie into automation. Robots could help with things like harvesting crops, cooking, collecting materials from enemies killed by traps. I just feel like automation could add a lot of satisfaction and replayability to late game, similar to what you would see with automation systems in games like Minecraft, while still linking into other core mechanics of the game. My next point is kind of the opposite of robotics. However, with chemistry being added to the game, I think it could be a great opportunity for more magic items to be introduced. The chemistry system already feels a little like scientific potions, while things like the Mystagogue armor, hard light shields, and Mystagogue gloves show how the game can introduce seemingly magical abilities without feeling completely disconnected from the science fiction setting. I'd love to see something like a staff crafting line, and with the glitch area shown in the trailer, I think they can incorporate that into the concept somehow. For example, you could have weapons or abilities that look like they came straight out of a video game, while still having some explanations within the world of Abiotic Factor, such as how the glitch has taken over Space Queen. Very on theme for what we can see in the trailer, I think fishing could use a pretty significant overhaul, because right now for me it feels like quite a bit of a chore. One thing I'd love to see is additional lures on your rods, similar to what you can find in modded Terraria, allowing you to catch multiple things at once, reducing some of the grind in fishing. The trailer also seems to hint at diving for fish, which could be a really fun alternate way of collecting them and add some variety to the fishing system. And with what looks like a dredge crossover, I could definitely see this happening. But the biggest feature I'd love to see added is fish breeding. You could lock specific colour variations and hybrid species behind breeding, giving the system much more depth. Unintended. It could also give players another way to farm rare materials that currently have limited resources, i.e. materials obtained by butchering certain fish. And importantly, it would also give players who hate fishing another way to obtain fish without having to spend hours doing so. Outside of building and collecting, there isn't a huge amount to do once you've reached the endgame. One addition I'd like to see added is some kind of tower defense or endless wave mode for players who enjoy combat. These enemies probably shouldn't drop their usual materials. Instead, reaching certain waves could give rewards such as special weapons, cosmetics, figurines, or other unique items. This could also tie into the glitch content we'll see. Maybe it could take place inside an arcade machine, keeping it separate from the main facility while giving us something fun to repeatedly play. Another suggestion I've seen other people make is a New Game Plus. I imagine most players wouldn't want to abandon their existing base. If I remember correctly, a scientist in the story created a copy of the entire facility, so perhaps the Space Queen glitch could allow us to enter the copied facility and start New Game Plus, while still retaining a way to return to our original world. That would give players the replayability of New Game Plus without forcing them to abandon hundreds of hours on their current builds. The addition of the upgrade workbench was great because it gave some weapons a way to become more powerful. I'd like to see some branching weapon upgrades, where one weapon can eventually develop into several different endgame options. Take the welding spear for example. It's a great early game weapon that eventually upgrades into the load spear. But what if there was 3 upgrade paths instead? One could remain the load spear, another could become the lightning spear that we already have in the game, and the third could potentially be some kind of ice spear, and these could potentially branch even further. Thermal spear could eventually specialise into holy fire, plasma fire, or simply become a much stronger base fire weapon. I know this would be a lot to ask from the devs, but it would add a huge amount of build diversity. A whole group of friends could start with the same weapon and eventually end up with completely different weapons by the end of the game. I'm sure I'm not the only one who basically only uses the long jump pack or jetpack, and that's a bit of a shame because it makes most of the other late game backpack options feel redundant. Rather than nerfing the jetpack and long jump pack to make the alternatives more appealing, I'd rather see them become something I'd call modules. You could equip the jetpack or long jump pack upgrades alongside your normal backpack, allowing any backpack to gain those movement abilities. That way, you can keep the mobility you want while still having a reason to experiment with different backpacks. Leading on to our next point, I think armour could also benefit massively from something called a mod slot. A lot of the time you simply are wearing a full set of armour and some of the set bonuses aren't particularly compelling. Giving each armour piece a mod slot could allow players to create much more complex builds. I think they could also buff a lot of the 2-piece armour sets to give us a reason to mix and match between different sets. Combination of mod slots plus being able to wear 2 different armour sets effectively could really help to add more depth to the build crafting in this game. Finally, by far the biggest thing I want to see in Abiotic Factor is official mod support. Games like Minecraft and Terraria have been carried by their modding communities for years now, and modding can add an almost endless amount of replayability. Abiotic Factor feels like the perfect game for a strong modding community. Imagine the possibilities. You could have new portal worlds, new IS entities, weapons, companions, quests, automation systems. The possibilities are basically endless. I know the game can already be modded to some extent. From what's currently available, it seems fairly limited. The developers have also commented on modding before the 1.0 launch, although we currently don't know exactly if or when more extensive official mod support will arrive. Their statement was, and I quote, "We are investigating various ways to support modding, but we are currently not able to specify exactly what modding support there will be at launch. We are big fans of modding ourselves and would like to support that in the future." End quote. So hopefully this is something we'll eventually get. Obviously, not all of these are necessarily specific to the DLC, but they're all things I'd love to see added to the game eventually. What do you think? What would you add to the game? Let me know down in the comments. So, we're almost at 100 subscribers. Honestly, I didn't expect to get here this quickly, especially considering this channel was still pretty new. But to celebrate hitting 100 subs, I wanted to give something back to you guys. I'm going to be giving away 1 copy of Abiotic Factor on PC, aka Steam, for 1 lucky viewer. To enter, all you need to do is comment SnowPeccary. I'll randomly pick 1 winner once we hit the deadline that will be displayed in the comments. You don't need to subscribe to enter, but obviously if you've been enjoying the videos, I'd really love to have you stick around. Thank you so much for the support so far, and best of luck to all of you.